This was supposed to be the game for anyone who's having modern gaming FPS fatigue for the longest time. A free-to-play game that doesn't overly monetize itself to make it feel like you have to do pay to win to be able to be successful within the game. A direct reply to anyone who's had issues with Call of Duty over the last few years of how they run their optimized based, skill-based matchmaking systems. To stand tall amongst the crowded FPS genre, being a free-to-play game made by developers who have a high level of expertise when it comes to games we all love. But why did XDefiant fail? And in this video, we're gonna get everything about XDefiant from the beginning of it originally being a Tom Clancy game to its eventual decline and sunsetting. So you guys want to know everything? Make sure you stay tuned throughout the whole video to understand all the details. Now, as someone who has a long history of playing all these very casual, popular FPS games, starting in my days back in the Halo days, playing CE back in LAN, all the way up to Halo Infinite and still keeping up with that game to this day, and been there since the original hype of the 360 from COD 4 to even now when it comes to playing Call of Duty, and how I've kind of fallen out of love with this franchise. I had thought, hey, maybe XDefiant might be that game for me to get me back into playing these type of shooters. But I will say, after coming back to playing XDefiant recently just before the server shut down, it kind of reminded me why I didn't really keep up with this game. So let's start with just like the initial impressions of XDefiant before even playing the game in the first place. And the biggest thing I had was the issue of just the initial impressions that we got from the reveal trailer of XDefiant. It was not well received at all. Because if you just look at the like to dislike ratio on the Ubisoft channel, 16k likes to 35k dislikes, like, it didn't go over well for the first impressions. And a big issue with the game was that it used the Tom Clancy name originally, which it was trying to do like this like rough, rugged, kind of like grounded experience that Tom Clancy is known for, but then also the kind of like this punk atmosphere kind of vibe that's kind of like angsty almost in a way with Tom Clancy name. It did not resonate well at all with a lot of people. I mean, when they first got impression, like this was the first gameplay they ever saw, seeing all this spray paint, all these characters with like different kind of like costumes basically in the middle of like battling each other. It just didn't really match the vibe that people knew of Tom Clancy. And within this trailer, Mark Rubin even spouted about like, yeah, we're having realistic kind of gunplay and experiences with this game, while you have like X-ray vision and force fields and things like that, and like regen fields that you can utilize in the game. There was a big disconnect happening, and people were murdering this game in just the comments just to start off with, saying gameplay unique to our shooter, but then they proceed to show a turret, which is one of the most overdone special abilities in a shooter game. And people even saying that this game looks auto-generated by an algorithm. Not exactly what you want to hear for your first impressions. So right off the rip, this game had to play off of the back foot of trying to win players over, especially in the crowded FPS genre, where it's another free-to-play arena-style shooter that was supposed to get people excited to play this game. Not exactly where you want to be when you're trying to win over an audience with a new IP. So then, okay, they went back, they reworked some aspects of the game, and actually came back with a brand new trailer. And they dropped the Tom Clancy part, and they just called themselves XDefiant. And they were just going to be what they wanted to be, which is kind of like a class/hero based shooter utilizing Ubisoft IP just in general, rather than sticking to just the Tom Clancy experience, which I think would be the right move. Because even though Tom Clancy has a lot of great IPs and historic games over the decades of games that have been made in Tom Clancy, there's just only so many you can work with. But you have Ubisoft in general, there's a lot you can do. There's so many different types of crazy universes and different types of gameplay, maps and gunplay and characters you can kind of play off of when it comes to just being Ubisoft branded kind of game. Almost like a Ubisoft hero shooter, which is something would have been kind of fun and exciting. But then they didn't really go that route, but then they kind of did. I know, I'll get into it. It's really confusing. But at least with this new trailer update, guys, that like the reception of the game completely flipped over on its head, and now was greatly liked compared to dislikes. Like, everyone's really excited about this game, but I think it was always just because this game always seemed to be just kind of in the shadow of Call of Duty, because this was during the dark times for a lot of Call of Duty multiplayer 6v6 fans, because they went from playing Vanguard, which was very much hated by the community. No one really, in the vast majority of people in the Call of Duty community, enjoyed at least the campaign of Vanguard. They didn't like it. They played the multiplayer. They still didn't like it. And then they thought they would be saved with Modern Warfare 2. Obviously, because Modern Warfare 2019 was a huge success. People enjoyed it for how much they say they hated it. They still played it a lot. But then Modern Warfare 2 came out with Warzone 2, and it just did not click with this community. And so it left a big, huge hole for where XDefiant could really come in, and they really capitalized on that gap, hosting a beta, which actually brought in a lot of partners from the Call of Duty community that people know and love, like some of your most famous players like Scump and stuff like that playing this game. People were like, yeah, this game's amazing. This is a lot of fun, especially during this time period of Call of Duty where there's just not an enjoyable experience for a lot of people in that community out there. So there was a lot of hype being brought around this game. So the marketing, while being very content creator and Call of Duty focused, was now returning around and getting some positive reactions. So much so that back in April of 2023, when this closed beta launched, semi-closed, wasn't really truly like a closed beta, if you know what I mean. It was pretty open at the same time, but pretty easy to get in. That gained around 50,000 viewers on Twitch alone, combining over the popularity of Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2. So it was getting the attention of COD players. They wanted to play this game. So what really happened? Well, I think this is where the roadmap to the launch window of the game really hurt it, because we had such a long runway of build-up, excitement, time to play the game, and then play the game again. And then again, when it comes to play testing for public alphas and betas and stuff like that, it's like at some point, just release the game. You know, like, why do you need us to jump in and play the game so often? I understand utilizing the player base and interest to try to, one, gain some hype and also test out bugs and things like that. But the runway for the launch of this game was so long that people honestly got fatigued from just waiting around. I mean, looking back on the Twitter, they even did another like play test session in September of 2023 saying like, oh, thank you for playing, guys. I really appreciate it. And then it was just months of absolute silence. Right? We got a message here from the XDefiant team just saying, thank you everyone for testing out the stuff. Yeah, we really appreciate what you guys did. We're working on the game again. We're going to continue working on. So it's October 9th, 2023. And then absolutely nothing until New Year's Eve. And then nothing until March of 2024, which is like a huge gap of just like no communication from a team that built this off and being open and honest with this community. Everyone's like, what the heck's going on? Essentially, the issue being what has been concurrent throughout the entirety of XDefiant's gameplay experience, where people love the mechanics, they like the style of game and everything else. But the biggest issue was the netcoding, the experience of playing the game, where if you have a bad issue of being like shot around corners, or maybe having the time to kill not feel too fair, to where you have to lay shots into people, but then they shoot at you, you die almost instantly, or having an inability to evade, it just becomes a frustrating experience for people. So technical issues are really holding this game back at launch. So when the game actually launched, yeah, it had all these issues that were from the beta and the multiple play tests that carried over until the full launch of the game. It just wasn't ready for prime time. People still complained about poor hit registration, input lag, netcode issues, being shot around corners and things like that, which is a consistent issue, which has been around there for the longest time for this game. And it's still launched with those issues that people just don't have that time to be patient anymore with their games. That basically when they want to start playing the game, they need the game to be up and running. But the hard part is when you're a free-to-play arena shooter like XDefiant, you're going against the competition of games like Call of Duty, Apex Legends, Fortnite. I mean, just name all the big free-to-play shooters out there trying to vie for your time, right? Starting with a brand new IP of XDefiant, which has some good core gameplay mechanics, but I think really struggled with the execution to make it so that it was a gameplay loop that people wanted to continue to keep on playing, especially with a lot of the technical issues that it was having at launch. And I have to say a major issue when it came to bringing people into this game was actually one of the biggest selling points, I'd say, for the gaming community, online gaming community, was the lack of skill-based matchmaking or engagement optimized matchmaking systems, EOMM or something like that, whichever you want to refer to it as. Is that I think that actually kind of turned a lot of people off from wanting to play this game, really just because it seemed like it kept advertising to like streamers and content creators, like, you guys are going to want to play this game because it will bring back the casual days you guys have been wanting so desperately from Call of Duty and other Halo and other major FPS titles out there. And he thought that this was going to be a great idea, right? Faster match times, more casual experience, which is something people have been begging for their shooters in the gaming industry for the longest time. But then what really actually happened is he had unbalanced matches. Everyone got the impression that it was like a bunch of streamers just trying to get those golden COD lobbies back in the day of dropping like 30, 40, 50 kills in a team deathmatch, and ultimately actually led to poor retention because of the lack of skill-based matchmaking. Now, for myself, I have to say that while I'm not the biggest fan of modern skill-based matchmaking systems, especially in Call of Duty and Halo, it just seems pretty sweaty, and I'm like not that great of a player. I'm pretty average. I'm a casual player of, you know, these kind of games. I just kind of want to jump in and just shoot some stuff. But sometimes, like, just having like so strict skill-based matchmaking just kind of takes the fun out of it. It makes it feel like my gameplay is more just based off an algorithm rather than my own personal experience. So I would think if you remove skill-based matchmaking, it'd be like the good old days of Modern Warfare 2, Halo 3, and all those classic, you know, Black Ops 2 and all those classic multiplayer days. But it really just didn't really play out like that, really. I mean, from my recent experience of playing the game again, it was all right, but you know, we have experience and actual data from games that actually have skill-based matchmaking, talking about when they loosened it. Well, things didn't really turn out as intended as people like to say they would when playing online here. Specifically, I recall back to this data that was given us by Activision, or I should say more Sledgehammer back in the day, talking about when they experimented about loosening or at least turning off skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty, and it led to really bad retention and players dropping off. Showcasing this specific graph right here, basically just saying that when they loosen the parameters, the casual player base, which is like the 90% player base, really dropped off and didn't really come back to play the game, where the players who were like that 10% really good high skill players kept coming back. It's even stated right here, saying with deprioritized skill, returning player rate was down significantly for 90% of players. The 10 highest percent skilled players came back in increased numbers, but it basically hurt the game overall. Stating right here, eventually leading to where the 10% of players would become the top 20%, and then eventually the top 30% of players, and eventually you just be left with just the sweaty kids left playing the game. And that's kind of what happened with XDefiant, because given the issues the game had at launch, which were then relatively resolved and still played out rather well, it's just that you didn't really see people coming back to the game just because they just didn't have that patience to wait for another game to have a rough launch to then get patched to be better later on after that. And then everyone kind of went back to their other multiplayer games that they like playing, their other free-to-play shooters like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex Legends, things like that, to where they just didn't really want to come back and learn a whole new game and also divest all their time that they put into those games to be better at them, and also the financial investment that they made into those games as well, to where the comeback to XDefiant just didn't really seem like it was something that would be really bring people back together. And also with the content that was coming into XDefiant just wasn't really that exciting. I look back at this year one roadmap, you're like, yeah, 3 new weapons, which are kind of all the same kind of weapons you've used a million times, AK-47s, LMGs, SMGs, like nothing that crazy or interesting. 3 new arena maps, like, okay, cool. We always get new arena maps, new battle pass. That's good for you too right there. But then you talk about like different kind of modes, like new arena and progression modes and things like that. But like the modes that they were added in weren't really like anything like new or exciting. Like for the big game drop, the new cool experience you can have with XDefiant for season 2 was just search and destroy, like a search and destroy bomb mode. I played it, and it was search and destroy, a mode that we've played since Call of Duty 4 or something like that at the time. Basically another kind of it's essentially a variation of Counter-Strike, but you see what I mean? Like, it's not really anything new. It's just them adding in game modes and experiences you've had previously into their game. And of course, seeing reports saying that like the game is dying according to Ubisoft, which I mean, doesn't really lend well to people wanting to invest their time into the game when they keep hearing stories about the game dying. Another major issue with this game is that it launched on, for PC at least, the Ubisoft launcher, which people only ever use the Ubisoft launcher when they absolutely have to. And this is like a relic of back in the day of like making sure that you have your own version of your own launcher, so then you don't have to like lose that cut of money beyond Steam or things like that. But sometimes you just gotta go where the players are, and the players for PC are on Steam. So with unpolished mechanics, technical issues, the lack of a good platform being on Steam, being stuck to the Ubisoft Connect platform, stiff competition, like I mentioned earlier, with like Call of Duty specifically, and then going directly after that Call of Duty community and not being able to grab them properly, especially before the release of Modern Warfare 3, which seemed to kind of right a lot of the wrongs from Vanguard and Modern Warfare 2 for the multiplayer side of things, and underwhelming support of being slow to updates, the map and the content being added in wasn't really anything that exciting. Good, like, oh my gosh, I need to play XDefiant because they're doing this with the game now. So I've been talking about generally what the community has experienced, what they disliked about XDefiant, what kind of caused its issues. But for me personally, the reason why I didn't really feel much connection when it comes to XDefiant was really because of the factions, and not because they're classes or heroes or anything like that. It's because like the characters that they use for these different factions, I just don't recognize any of them, which I think was just a huge waste of opportunity. This is supposed to be like Ubisoft's hero shooter, basically. Be able to use this long storied publisher with all these incredible franchises out there to get a chance to really play as these characters and kind of have a fun hero shooter type of experience, but then you don't actually play as any recognizable character from any Ubisoft game. Like, for example, you have the Echelon faction right here, which is supposed to be based off of Splinter Cell, right? But then you don't actually play as the one guy you play as in Splinter Cell. I mean, Sam Fisher, I mean, hello? Or even with the recently added Assassin's Creed group, right? You play as Ichika and Logan and Saeed. I mean, I think I've heard Saeed before, but you don't play as like any like notable characters. Like, where's Ezio? Where literally any character from Ubisoft, where are they? Like, you have your Rainbow Six Siege, but then you look at these characters, like, I guess they look like Siege characters. I mean, it's not anyone I ever see like in the art that they ever use when it comes to promoting Rainbow Six Siege. Or how about the 3 factions of Far Cry that they use with the Highwayman, Libertad, and also Far Cry Blood Dragon, and they don't use any of the main characters that you recognize from those games. Like, I played Blood Dragon Far Cry 3. I don't know who Mullet Man is. Like, for example, when I do a quick Google search of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, you know who I see? I see the main character you played as was just like Rex Power Cult, right? This, by the way, this expansion was amazing for Far Cry 3, and that was just like incredible. But then like not used at all within the game. I don't understand why. And when I search Splinter Cell, you know who I see? I see Sam Fisher, because he's the main character of the franchise as a whole. So I don't see why we couldn't like have like these actual traditional like iconic characters. Like, imagine playing XDefiant, you go in your factions and you have like Far Cry 3 and you get to play like as Voss or something like that. That would have been just such a crazy cool, like, oh, that's awesome, I get to play as the bad guy from the game. Like, that's one of the most iconic characters ever in Ubisoft's history. Nowhere to be found in any of these type of hero shooters. I mean, this would essentially feel like if Marvel Rivals launched without like Iron Man or Thor or Spider-Man or literally any other like iconic characters you would have from the franchise, and starting out with like Green Lantern or something, and that would just be like, what are you guys doing? Now, I'm not really one for be like a graphics snob and stuff like that when it comes to the visual presentation in games. Like, I can roll with it. Like, I like Marathon's graphics and people hated on that a lot, but looking at like the Division's graphics, I just felt like they were really kind of lacking something. Like, look at this map in particular. I think, by the way, these are graphics cranked up to max settings right now on my 3080, which I'm still getting great performance, which I think was probably one of the benefits of like having a game like this. But you compare like what the visual presentation of what this game looks like right now, but compare that similar area to the Division, which came out, I think it was 2017 when this game came out, and it's like visually it just looks so much better than what we got with XDefiant, which was like so many years later. I've always kind of felt like the animations were really just like video gamey with this game as well. For example, like if I'm sprinting with my assault rifle like this and I switch to my pistol, it's like really kind of pops and chops. Like, it's not really like a fluid type of motion that you have. And it's kind of like that kind of like similar type of jank throughout the entirety of the game, where like every reload animation just feels very quick video gamey, right? Like, it doesn't feel like it's like an actual like how people reload. I don't know, it lacks like that the visceralness, that realistic gunplay that they touted so greatly at the launch of like when they announced the game, right? Like, even when it comes to like just how the guns fire, it's just like, it doesn't really feel like I'm shooting the weapon compared to like what I've experienced like with Call of Duty, or what I've experienced with Battlefield, or even Halo at that point. I feel like Halo feels like more like I'm shooting those weapons than here in XDefiant. Now, another thing I had an issue with when it comes to XDefiant was like how the movement and the aim worked in this game. As a mouse and keyboard player, I don't have aim assist, right? So a lot of raw aim skill needs to come involved with this, and I felt like the movement was just so janky and weird that it just didn't really feel very human-like, even though you're playing as humans. I have this one clip, for example, to show you what I'm talking about. Tell me if I'm just being a boomer in the situation, or if it's actually a legitimate issue you guys may be experiencing as well. But you can see I'm kind of playing the game right now. Now here's this player coming over to my left, which, by the way, the audio is fantastic in this game, but you can see how I should have had that guy, right? Like, that was a pretty straightforward gunfight, like catching this player completely off guard. He's kind of running animation. I'm getting the first shots, and the first shots landed on point. And since I don't have aim assist, this character's able to use that momentum and just jump across the screen like this and then strafe right back when I try to compensate for the aim. And I just got completely dunked on. Like, yeah, kudos to that guy being really good at the game. But I felt like I needed aim assist just to stay on target, and I usually end up having to use like an entire clip just to stay on target for people to get kills in this game. And it just felt super, just really tough to really actually get like a true kill in this game. It was just, the movement was just so janky and weird to me. So while it might have sounded super negative about this game, but it's also very easy to praise this game as well because of how the gameplay feels and plays and stuff like that. But I was just letting you know like why I didn't stick with this game throughout the couple of years that it was out, just because of the various little janky aspects of it and how a lot of the gameplay just didn't really vibe with me a whole lot, and how they always had to be on the back foot when it came to trying to advertise this game to players, and the lackluster offering that it had. Like, it had like a lot of maps at launch, yeah, but with the gameplay experience, like, it just felt like it was just going straight after the Call of Duty community and trying to be like, hey, COD kids, you have issues with your game? Come play our game. It's like Call of Duty, but, you know, not as annoying as your current Call of Duty experience is, which is, could be a useful marketing tactic, but I think ultimately it hurt the game more than anything because it was trying so hard to be like the anti-Call of Duty that it just constantly got compared to Call of Duty. And that's something that I don't think you really need to try to be. You need to stand out and be your own type of game out there. That's kind of why I feel XDefiant really kind of just dropped the ball, and that's why it's being let go, guys. Like, so again, I wanted this game to succeed. I felt like it had opportunity, but ultimately I think this game just got let down from a lot of people because of the poor launch, the constant comparisons to Call of Duty, and like a big emphasis on streamers and trying to get those people to play the game rather than having like your core audience out there. And it ultimately just felt pretty sweaty and wasn't really that casual friendly. And even at the time of making this video, you usually see like a big resurgence when the game's just about to shut down. Like, oh, remember those good old times, guys? Jump back in and play. People are not even doing that with XDefiant now, guys. On the Twitch directory, you have to scroll quite a ways down to be able to find XDefiant. I'm still scrolling, I'm looking for it. I know it's down here somewhere. It's somewhere down below here. But you can see, like, even then, like, people were interested in streaming this game and playing it. Just not really that interested. Here we are, XDefiant, 173 people watching the game right now. It's a shame to see that, like, such low interest, and I think these are all the streamers who are playing. Majority of these people are either sub 5 viewers from here down below, or all sub 5 viewer chats, which we can count me as well. I'm not putting shame on these guys at all. I'm just letting you know, like, the lack of interest with a game like XDefiant being like an arena-based hero shooter is just not that interesting. Well, let me know in the chat if you guys are gonna miss XDefiant. Let me know in the comments if you guys made it this far in the video. Let me know who the real ones are. It's a long one, but I really wanted to test out and see who the real ones are. Leave a black heart in the comment section, and I'll know who the real ones are that made it to the end of the video here, guys. So thank you all so much for watching. Greatly appreciate missing any content from me recently. Check out the videos right here, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out, and rest in peace, XDefiant.